lovely souls, and welcome back to Faith in the Valley with Deechi. Wherever you are in the world, I hope that you are well. And so, if you've been following my story, you will know that I've been slowly sharing reflections about my own journey through my recovery. And this has included my time being in hospital, and this was due to my unexpected back injury. So for those of you who are new here, I have a herniated disc in the L5-S1 part of my spine in my lower back, and this has compressed my nerves, which triggered cauda equina syndrome symptoms. So today I am going to share with you what happened during day 5 of being in hospital. And it was a day that tested my patience, my pain threshold, and quite honestly, it also tested my faith. And it was a day of numbers, needles, and nerves. But it was also a day of care, compassion, and God's quiet strength. So in the morning, it started off really early, so at about 6:45 a.m. or so. And Nurse Kim, who I had met the night before, she came in gently to take my blood pressure, which was a regular occurrence. And she was so kind to me. She is the sort of nurse whose presence makes you feel just a little bit more human, especially when you're going through so much pain and so many new things which you haven't experienced before. And so my blood pressure reading was 153/94. And that number told me that my body was really struggling, and that wasn't really a surprise considering what I'd been traveling through. And I was given my usual medication, which was cocodamol and ibuprofen, which were now becoming my daily companions in a sense because I took them so often. And at 9:45, I met another really lovely nurse called Aminata, and she took my blood pressure again, and this time it was 147/90. So still lower than my previous reading, but also still elevated at the same time. So that told me that my body was clearly under a lot of strain, from the pain, the lack of sleep as well, and just the sheer emotional exhaustion around the whole situation. So later that morning, I had the two lovely physiotherapists that I'd seen before, and they came to review my mobility and just to see how I was. And at this point, walking was still a huge challenge for me. Even standing was really uncomfortable without any help. And they gently showed me 3 exercises that I could do because a lot of the time I was bedbound. I had to take a lot of bed rest. And so they showed me that just to help me keep my muscles moving. And they reminded me again of how to use the walking frame and also how to use crutches properly. And everything felt so slow and so fragile and really mentally exhausting because there was so much to process and so much to remember, and being on the medication as well, which made me feel quite drowsy at times. I didn't always remember everything that they were telling me. But then at around 12 noon, I had a conversation with one of the orthopedic consultants, and she asked me about my pain levels, asked me about how I was coping emotionally, and I really appreciated her honesty and also her calm approach and her calm manner, because that offered some reassurance that she was actually listening to what I was sharing with her and what I was feeling and how my body was feeling as well. But then we discussed something that I didn't really expect. And again, is the issue that I've touched on before in a previous video. And this was the issue of constipation. And the main cause of that was because of all the medication that I was taking. And I know it's not glamorous to talk about constipation, but when your body is in survival mode, even the basics can go wrong. And that's exactly what I was traveling through. And so the consultant explained to me that an enema might be considered. Now, at the time, I remembered asking her, well, what is an enema? Because I had no idea. So when she explained the process, which is basically to have liquid inserted to clear my bowels, so inserted through my rectum to clear my bowels, I heard that and I literally started to pray silently. And I said, Lord, I really don't want that. It did not sound pleasant. It did not sound great. And I had never had anything pushed into my rectum. And so I knew that it had to be done though. So there had to be a level of acceptance around that, because I felt bloated, I felt unwell, I felt uncomfortable, and I was full of waste emotionally and physically. So the consultant explained that the hospital's pain management specialist was also away for the next few weeks. So that really left her and the rest of her team to adjust my medication and to prescribe what was recommended to help me. And the only issue really around that was they couldn't proceed because they had to really deal with my issue of the ongoing constipation. So I was really stuck in a sense, and I felt like I was in a really strange place, to be honest with you, because my pain was high, my medication wasn't working as well as I thought it would, and my body felt full of things that I just couldn't release on my own. But she reassured me that they would monitor me and they would also monitor, my mobility, my pain, at least for the next 2 to 3 days. And so that gave me something to hold on to at the time, because I just told myself, if I can just hold on to the weekend, then that will make a huge difference. So that evening I had my next round of cocodamol and ibuprofen, and I had that with some vitamins as well, because it was for just trying to strengthen and support my bone strength. And I also had a blood thinner injection to prevent blood clots. And this is because of my lack of movement and being bedbound. So clotting was a real risk for me. And I'll be honest, those injections did not feel nice at all. I don't like needles anyway. And I also had to continue wearing the high compression stockings or socks. And that was also to help avoid any blood clotting. But then came the moment that shook me. And this was at about 6:50 in the evening or so, and Nurse Rita, who was a really lovely and gentle healthcare assistant, and she came in to check my blood pressure again, and she gently let me know that my blood pressure was a little bit of a concern, and I could tell from her face as well, because I knew that something wasn't quite right. And so she told me that my blood pressure was 200 over 101. And that number felt like a storm siren going off in my head. And I tried to stay calm, but my heart started racing, my back was still aching, my stomach was unsettled and bloated and uncomfortable, and I was exhausted. And now I felt afraid of hearing about how high my blood pressure was. So that evening I just braced myself and I asked God to just continue to be with me. And I prayed and I said, God, if I have to go through this valley, then please go through it with me. And just help me to breathe, help me to rest, and just help me to not spiral into fear. And just speaking to God really helped me just to settle myself and to calm my mind. There's so much that happens when you're going through a healing valley like this or a recovery season like this. And so if you're watching this video and you're in a place where your body is in complete distress and where the numbers and the needles and the nurses are a part of your daily life, let me remind you of this. It says in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 29, that he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. In 1 Peter 5, verse 7, it also says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. You are not forgotten in your pain. You are not invisible in your recovery. And you are not too far gone. And healing is beginning and is happening. And sometimes healing isn't dramatic. And sometimes lying in a hospital bed, whispering a prayer and just believing that even now God is working for you and working with you and helping you. And just so that your body and your soul can find some sense of relief and hope and to renew your faith in a really unfamiliar situation. And so I have two questions for you. The first question is, have you ever felt overwhelmed in your recovery journey? And the second question is, what prayers have brought you peace in the hardest times? I would really love to hear from you. So please do add your comments below. And if you would like me to share your story about your recovery, then please do reach out to me. I would love to hear from you, and my details are in the description below. So until the next time, keep healing, keep praying, and keep trusting. And finally, may grace meet you exactly where you are. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love and I enjoy speaking with you. And until the next time, take care.